I think a lot of people may be underestimating the possibilities of where Bitcoin and where the crypto industry as a whole can go within the short amount of time of this bull run cycle. And the reason why is the whole concept of the super cycle. And if this is a mass adoption curve, I mean, we may see the adoption of a technology of the largest scale in the shortest period of time in all of human history. And we essentially have a technology that is disrupting the entire financial banking system. That is the largest market of all markets to exist. And the problem with it is, yes, this is a threat to the old system, but it's also an opportunity to be an early adopter of a new system. And the kind of value that can be transferred in a transition like this, we don't know how to measure it. I mean, it is immeasurable. And that's why every time Bitcoin passes the all-time high, we're in price discovery mode. We have no idea how big this can get and how short of a time frame possible. But to help conceptualize of how big of an opportunity this is I like to envision what this mass adoption will look like, because ultimately, I mean, we're dealing with Bitcoin is competing with the currencies of nation states. These are nation states that have militaries and they're in war and they're in conflict. And one power that nation states need to maintain is currency control. You know, the United States, especially since World War II, has been the reserve currency of the world. We have had currency domination of the entire market. And, you know, after World War II, we really established that, where, especially with the Bretton Woods system, all currencies were essentially backed by the US dollar. And other nations held reserves in US dollars. That's how nation states, that's the currency that of which they maintain value. And the United States government had the power to, essentially print money and control policy and, initiate. They can take people out of the banking system. They had powers like they did this with Russia when the Russia-Ukraine war started, where they essentially, I think it's SWIFT. Is it SWIFT? I forget what it's called. I don't know too much about this. However, currency control gives nation states power. And now there's a decentralized currency that's been created and adopted by a mass population of people around the entire world. And nation states are unsure what to do because this is a threat to their current existing currency, that of which they have had control over. And I'm not saying this is a bad thing. However, what I'm trying to visualize is, what is this transition going to look like? And I think it's very simple. I think the people who adopt Bitcoin first are going to win. The goal over the next decade is going to be to accumulate as much Bitcoin as possible. And those with the biggest reserves of Bitcoin over the next decade are going to be the people who of which have the most amount of stored value. That's the end all be all rule. So it's very simple, where the nation states who first adopt Bitcoin are going to win. The individuals, the families, the corporations, the businesses, the tech companies, those who first adopt Bitcoin are going to win, and they're going to get it for the cheapest price, because the sooner you buy into something, the cheaper it is before it goes mainstream. And however, during this transition, there's a period of time of extreme fear or fear of missing out. And once one player makes a move, and this ties into game theory, once one player adopts a winning strategy, the rest of the competing market has to adopt the same winning strategy in order to maintain competitive. And to analogize this, I grew up a swimmer, and back in the day, you used to, the flip turns weren't a thing. And as soon as somebody began racing and doing the flip turn, well, they just onboarded a strategy that was more competitive. It made them faster. And then before you know it, everyone is doing flip turns because it was the winning strategy. And that's game theory in effect, where if one nation state, one competitor, international competitor, adopts Bitcoin and begins accumulating a Bitcoin reserve, in order for other nation states to remain competitive, they must adopt a Bitcoin reserve. If tech companies, Microsoft, it's December 10th, they have an SEC filing and they're making a decision today if they want to begin taking cash reserves and accumulating a Bitcoin reserve. If they do that, their competitors, Apple, and every other tech company to exist, is going to be forced to take on the same strategy in order to remain competitive. And when game theory takes effect, that's when we begin seeing price explosion. And we have no idea how big this can get. And we don't know, like, we've been living in 4-year cycles. And there's a possibility that this cycle can break. And that's why you should never trade Bitcoin. You should never buy and sell. You simply just hold. You accumulate and hold, and you don't do anything with it. Now, just a disclaimer, none of this is financial advice. I'm just articulating my thoughts. One thing I want to move into is what could a nation state do? What can this look like? And Michael Saylor's talked about this, and I think that this is the most probable case. Where let's say, we have, with the recent victory of Donald Trump and the Republican administration, we have a lot of pro-Bitcoiners running the House, Senate, and Congress, almost everything. And if they understand this correctly, and they make this move, this will not only keep the United States as the world's superpower, but also being first to adopt Bitcoin will also ensure that they maintain currency control over their competitors such as China and Russia. And what they could do, and Michael Saylor's talked about this, is make a move from gold to Bitcoin, where they sell their gold reserves to our enemy. They sell it to Russia, they sell it to China, they sell it to the other nation states. And then they take those profits and they buy and they accumulate Bitcoin. And they just buy. They print money, buy. They use a currency, they buy. And what this is going to do is this is going to force every other nation state to adopt the winning strategy. And because the United States was the first mover into Bitcoin, well, all the other nation states, if they're going to want to adopt they're going to have to adopt the winning strategy. Therefore, they're going to have to buy Bitcoin. And if the United States isn't selling, well, they're going to be bidding the price up of the United States holdings because they were the first mover. And at the same time, this is also going to devalue gold because gold is no longer relevant to a reserve. It is no longer important. The only reason you're going to want to hold gold at this point is fear of going back to sticks and stones, where we're going to be, fighting bears and fucking going to war with swords, and the whole tech revolution, it's essentially the end-all be-all safety measure at that point. Bitcoin is even more scarce than gold. You can't create more Bitcoin. You can mine more Bitcoin. You can mine more gold. Price of gold goes up, miners increase their production of gold, and that devalues it. So, to loop back into what I was talking about, if the United States strategically sells their gold reserves, buys Bitcoin, accumulates Bitcoin, every other country with gold reserves, those with the largest gold reserves is Russia and China, our biggest enemies, their reserves go down in value. They're forced to remain competitive and buy into Bitcoin. Our Bitcoin goes up in value. The United States now maintains currency domination of the world and remains the most powerful free country to exist. And they're going to be able to use all this wealth transfer or this wealth accumulation through the game theory effect to pay off debts and do whatever they want with it. And this is the best strategy. It is the winning strategy. And if the United States doesn't do it and another nation state of elite power does before us, then they will become essentially the largest currency controller of the world. So all in all, those who accumulate the largest Bitcoin reserve win. That goes for me and you as an individual. That goes for every single company to exist. That goes for every nation state. And the only thing that we have to be concerned about right now is making sure that we hold our positions, because it is a volatile. It's a very volatile market. It's a very volatile asset. The reason why is because it's very early in its adoption curve, and because it's volatile, we need to make sure that we can take significant loss for a year or two period of time. As long as you own it and you're not in a position where you have to sell it at any point in time, then you should maintain that reserve. And then if not, if you can accumulate more of it, do so, ensuring that you will never have to sell it in case there is a 30, 40, 50, 60% downfall. Because we are still going to see these massive sell-offs. But I don't know why I'm getting into price and all that BS. However, this is very possible that we are in the super cycle. The super cycle is the idea of mass adoption, where game theory takes an effect, nation states begin accumulating reserves, and we have no idea how price is going to react. We don't know. This has never existed before. We have never replaced an international banking system with a new decentralized technology, that of which is accessible to every single person without government control through simple internet access. We have never experienced a technology that has the capability of being adopted this quickly. Even the internet. The problem with the internet was you needed hardware. You needed physical hardware. You needed computers. You needed access to internet. And even that technology was adopted within a decade or 14 years. Bitcoin is being adopted at twice the rate of internet because it's already accessible to everyone. We don't need to create hardware. We don't need to create hardware that's cheaper. We just had to create a user interface that was easily usable and accessible by the consumer. And that now exists. And we have to tie it into our current banking system. And we had to regulate it. And the government essentially just had to create rules. And all of this has been done now. And we're ready for that mass adoption cycle where the gates are open and everyone floods in. And how this is going to react on price, I have no idea. Whether or not we're going to go through another bear 4-year cycle, I have no idea. Nobody really knows these things. And that's why the only thing that you could do is just focus on accumulating more and never selling. And that's exactly what I'm doing. And if there's an opportunity for me to outperform Bitcoin, which is what my degenerate altcoin videos are about, I'm taking that opportunity and I'm taking that risk. I'm leveraging. I am very levered right now. And in fact, I don't even own any Bitcoin at this time. I own AI crypto and crypto gaming tokens that have a lot more upside when money flows, onto the layer 2s, from Ethereum onto the layer 2s. And my goal is to captivate a larger multiplier and outperform Bitcoin in the short term to accumulate Bitcoin over the long. And this is a risky strategy, but I'm 21 and I can assume the risk. I can lose all of my money and I have plenty of time to work, grind, and buy more Bitcoin. So that's my grand thesis of the game theory idea and mass adoption of Bitcoin. And we have no idea how big this is going to get, how quick it's going to happen, and how high it's going to go. That's the end of the video. Peace out.